Yes, hello folks. Welcome to this weekly Beyond the Pitch. We're doing this a day early. Joined here, of course, the fantastic Danny Higginbotham. Catch Danny on Twitter at Higginbotham05. We've got so much to get through this weekend. Danny, first of all, mate, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome, mate. No problem at all. Always a pleasure.
Dan, like I said, so much to get through, mate. We have the Tottenham result, which interested to get your views on this because it's a Tottenham team that haven't beaten anybody in the top six. I'm interested to get your views on Leicester. Another abject performance from Leicester. And I want to get into some other issues, contentious issues that you and I discussed a couple of weeks ago. About, I know you're vehemently against. I know you're vehemently against technology, but my goodness, we had some bad decisions this week in the Premier League, and your argument's getting thinner, Dan.
Like my hat.
Okay, first of all, let's go to Tottenham. Another disappointing result for them, Danny, against a Liverpool team that have been struggling. But we know that Liverpool are a different team against teams that play against them. Tottenham were out of the game early. Sadio Mane tore them to shreds, tore young Davies to shreds. Looked like Tottenham were missing badly the likes of Vertonghen, Danny Rose. But it's not an accident, Danny. And Tottenham haven't beaten any of the top six. Chelsea haven't got a great record against the top six either, to be fair. But they're picking up their points outside of the top six. But can we seriously take Tottenham seriously as a title challenger with, for me, the frailties that they have?
I think the thing is, when you look at Pochettino, I think some of the tactical side of things we've spoken about before that he's done have been a real advantage for them. You know, the way that he changed to a back three against Chelsea when they got that result and the fully deserved result at home. I think that when you look at some of the plays that are missing, I think Rose in particular, he's a huge miss because I think that the two fullbacks or wing-backs, or they have been in recent weeks, they are so fundamental and so key to the way that Tottenham play. But the one thing I would say about Pochettino is that whoever he's playing against, he takes the game to the opposition.
Yeah.
And what we've seen in the past with Liverpool in particular, so you look at the Burnley result, look at the Swansea result, the Bournemouth result, Bournemouth, and what teams have done that have been successful against Liverpool. You look at the cup games as well, Wolves in particular. The teams that have been successful against Liverpool have frustrated them. They've sat deep. Now, we talk about Mane, how good a player he is, and there's no question about that, but he was able to be to play to his true potential yesterday because Tottenham left so much space in behind their back four. Now, the one thing you don't want to do when you're playing against a player like Mane is give him that space to get into. And the space between, because they played a back four in Lloris, the space between the back four and the goalkeeper yesterday was unbelievable for a team that, you know, you have to look at Liverpool's previous results against teams they struggled against. They were teams that sat back, frustrated Liverpool, and then played against them on the counter-attack. The worst thing that you can do when you concede a goal to Liverpool, you're in big trouble because more often than not, Liverpool will go ahead and win that game because then they've earned the right then to play on the counter-attack. And I just think that Tottenham was wrong yesterday. I just thought they weren't compact enough as in terms of being deeper, didn't give themselves a strong basis to work off. And that surprised me. I did expect Liverpool to get something yesterday because of the way that Tottenham play, because of the fact that Liverpool are actually a better team with fewer possession. But the way that probably Liverpool started, I don't think it will have surprised Tottenham, but Klopp will have been delighted to get the lead in the manner in which he did and how quickly he did.
Yeah. Do Tottenham have, when we look at Chelsea, for me, Chelsea have match winners to me, Donny. They have Eden Hazard that can change the game in a second. They have big players that stand up in big moments. I know Harry Kane's a goal scorer, but he needs service. Do Tottenham have a player like Eden Hazard that can take a game by a scruff of the neck when they really need it and dig them out? Is there genuine world-class talent that are at the peak? For me, Tottenham have players just below that. Dele Alli, fantastic player, but do they have an Eden Hazard?
I think what they will do, if they can keep the players that they've got, they will have a progression of players that are getting better and stronger. I said last season, the end of last season, I said if your top 4 to 6 teams last season didn't sign any players, Tottenham would be the only team that were stronger for it, because they've got a young squad, and it was a vital lesson for them last season. They would have been stronger because of it. But I think they're still lacking that experiences in terms of know-how. They're lacking the experience of players that have probably won the Premier League. I don't think anybody within that starting 11 for Tottenham have won the Premier League before, have they?
No one that's starting 11.
I'm trying to think. They haven't. Chelsea had a poor season last season, but they've still got players that have know-how that have won the Premier League before. Manchester City, for whatever you want to say about them, they still have players that have won the Premier League. Liverpool are similar. They've not got players that have won the Premier League. Manchester United have got players that have won the Premier League. So experience does come in there massively. And I just think with a team like Tottenham are a team that want to go after you. They will go after you and try and make you make a mistake in your own half. But I think, as we've seen this season, that's not the way to play against Liverpool. I think the teams that are successful against Liverpool are the so-called lesser teams, really. The teams we mentioned, the Hulls, the Swanseas, the Burnleys, the Bournemouths, they're the ones that have been successful against Liverpool. And I was a little bit surprised in how much Pochettino wanted to go toe-to-toe with Klopp yesterday. And I think that's always a mistake, because Klopp's teams will beat you if you go toe-to-toe with them and leave space in behind, because of the movement and the pace that they've got within that front three.
So when we look, you say with Tottenham, they improve, obviously, with the young players. They're improving, Danny, but we know that Tottenham have a hard time keeping the hold of these players. And the question is, when they reach their full potential, Dele Alli becomes the world-class midfielder that it looks obvious he's about to become. Harry Kane, local lad, we know what. Will Daniel Levy be tempted to cash in on these? Because big clubs will come calling the same way they did for Gareth Bale, the same way they've done for all Tottenham players. And to me, I think it's important that they keep hold of Pochettino, they keep hold of these players, but will they keep hold of them, Danny?
I think obviously they've got a new stadium on the horizon, which is going to be something spectacular. It's going to be one of the best stadiums in the country, and I think if a situation Bale comes along where Real Madrid or Barcelona comes in, that's impossible. You can't keep them players. Manchester United couldn't do it with Ronaldo. Liverpool couldn't do it with Suarez. I think the difference is now what we'll probably see with Tottenham is that they're not going to have to sell to a domestic rival. We're not going to see a Berbatov move. We're not going to see a Carrick move, and players that have moved during that time. I think they're above that now.
How do you convince...
And I think Levy...
Sorry, go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say, how do you convince someone like Dele Alli, play here for the next 10 years, son? Because at some point, these players ask themselves, which I think Alexis Sanchez is asking himself as well at Arsenal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I want to win trophies. I want to win the European Cup. I want to win the Premier League or whatever, the La Liga or whatever. If those Tottenham players are going to ask themselves that question, how did Tottenham answer it that you can fulfill those ambitions here? I don't think you can.
I think if a Real Madrid or a Barcelona come knocking, and this goes for any of your top 5 or 6 teams, there's nothing you can do about it, because they are the teams that everybody wants to play for. So I think that becomes a battle that you are not going to win. I think as in terms of domestic rivals, I think you look at Sanchez, I think his biggest frustration is that he's joined Arsenal, there's been no real progression. I think when you look at Tottenham, there is a progression there. They're getting closer to Arsenal. They're getting closer to Chelsea as in terms of challenging for the Premier League title. So I think at the moment, they have plenty of players there that have time on their side as in terms of youth and endeavour and enthusiasm. I think they have a manager as well who is young, who's improving the players all the time. So I think as far as that goes, I think Tottenham is the place to be at the moment, because I think there's a general progression at that football club. We're not talking about a Tottenham club that's just been top 4 for the last 10, 15 years. We're talking about a Tottenham team that the Champions League was a failure this season, but they are a team within the domestic leagues that have had progression. They had progression last season. Okay, this season, it's a tough one, but it's not just settling for that top 4. They want to win. They want to win the league. They want to challenge. I think the days of the Berbatovs, the Carricks, there'll be a lot more players as well that they've sold to big rivals, to domestic rivals. I think them days are gone now. I think they don't need to do that. I think they've got this new stadium coming, which is going to attract more players as well. They've got a team which is improving all the time, a young team as well, which is key to it. So for me, I think that if you're Levy, if you're Pochettino, you can look at the players and say, listen, year on year, you're improving as individuals. We're improving as a team. You know, they could well finish second this season. That's an improvement then on last year.
Yeah, but Donny, as we've seen with Dimitri Payet, if a player really, really wants to go, ultimately they almost always get their way. So what happens if you get a situation Dele Alli, where City come in for him in the summer, or United or a big team comes in for him in the summer, and he demands a move? There's very little you can do at that point other than eventually sell him. I don't see Tottenham trying to make an example out of Dele Alli and say, well, you're going to play in our reserves, even if you don't need to sell.
I think the situation was a little bit different with Payet, because obviously, you know, he created unrest within the dressing room and he wanted to go home, so to speak. You know, Tottenham has a large England base. You know, you've got both the fullbacks, you've got the centre forward, you've got Dele Alli, you've got Eric Dyer. Plenty of players within that Tottenham squad that are comfortable in this country. They're from this country, so there's no real need for them. Like they said with Payet, Payet wanted to go home, so he says to be closer to his family and things like that. So that's a little bit different. I think that the manager has a lot to do with it, and I think the players seem to really love Pochettino. And Pochettino's gone about it the right way. Instead of going out and trying to sign these star players, you look at Arsenal at the moment, they have Sanchez and they have Ozil in particular. Last 18 months of the contracts. Tottenham, in the last 5 or 6 months, you've seen Dele Alli sign a new contract. You've seen Walker, Rose, Eric Dyer, I think Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Lloris. So they're getting all their better players on better contracts. I think Harry Kane as well. So they're tying all these players up. So they're looking after what they've got. And I think the big thing is with that team as well, they've got a lot of players round about the same age that can grow together, that have come through, not necessarily come through the system together at Tottenham, but have been together from the age of, say, 18, 19. And I think that's a big thing when you look at players like that. When you talk about a Sanchez at Arsenal, Tottenham, he didn't move to Tottenham at an early age. You know, we're talking about players at Tottenham that came to Tottenham at an early age. The likes of Walker, you know, I think he came from Sheffield United. Rose, I think he came from Leeds. Dele Alli came at a young age from MK Dons. Harry Kane's come through the system. You've got Winks now that's starting to come through. You've got Eric Dyer that came at a relatively, you know, early age as well. So it's a group of players that have grown up together. So therefore, I don't think there will be a necessity for them to move because of the dressing room, because of how much they feel part of it, as long as they see Tottenham progressing. Now, progression for them is, you know, getting into the Champions League again this season. Can they finish second? We know that Chelsea, by the looks of it, they're going to win the league. They've got a new stadium to look forward to as well. That's something that's on the horizon. So I think Tottenham are on the up at the moment. It can be kept. And also, I do think there needs to be, like you've said, you know, maybe a couple of players coming, you know, a couple of game changes, them little plays that can make the difference. And the summer will be interesting, but I don't see any reason why, you know, Tottenham won't go and do that.
Yeah, when I saw what happened at the end of last season, Danny, the last couple of games, they fall apart. Arsenal take second. To me, it's almost as much mental at Tottenham as well. Arsenal, I think, have this problem too. Before we move on, let's talk about Arsenal really quickly. Quick deviation here. Ian Wright was saying that he done an interview with Arsene Wenger earlier in the week, and Arsene Wenger for the first time said he's coming to the end. There's talk about whether he'll sign a new contract or not. This football club, for me, when you look, Robbie Mustoe was saying this on TV out here yesterday, which I couldn't agree with him more about. You look at the mentality at Chelsea, you look at the mentality at United, you look at the mentality at the top clubs in England. Top four is not good enough. Top four is not good enough to keep your job. Top four wasn't good enough for Van Gaal to keep his job. Top four wasn't good enough for Pellegrini to keep his job. Top four wouldn't have been good enough for Conte. It's good enough for Arsenal. That permeates from the top down to the bottom of that football club. Does that leave with Wenger? And when a new guy comes in, maybe a Simeone, maybe an Eddie Howe, who knows what Arsenal want? Does a different mentality come into Arsenal where they say top four is not good enough? Because to me, the top four goes above Wenger. It starts in the boardroom for me, Donny, and they more or less always hit that target round about there every year. To me, this Arsenal team cannot win the league until that mentality changes.
I think the problem that you have with that, Phil, in my opinion, is that it's all about what does the board want. If the board see it more of a business than anything, which is finishing in the top 4 regularly, and that's successful enough, and that will do us. What happens if Arsene Wenger says in the summer, right, that's me, done, finished, I'm going on to pastures new, I'm going on to retire, I've done a magnificent job in English football, I've had a magnificent managerial career. What happens then if Arsenal speak to a Simeone or other managers of the ilk of Simeone, and Simeone comes in and says, right, okay, first things first, be a top 4. I want this football club to be challenging. But in order for this football club to be challenging, I need you to give me £150 million. Then does the board turn around and say, well, no, we're not too bothered about this. This is strictly a business for us. We're happy for us to finish top 4 every season. We get the revenue from the Champions League. We get quite far in the Champions League. We get money from that. And it's a circle that keeps going round and round and round. The only time you have the answer to that is if a Simeone or a manager of, like I say, of his ilk that has a big reputation goes into Arsenal Football Club, and in the interview, the board turns around and says, right, what are your plans for this football club? If the manager turns around and says, well, top 4 is not good enough for me, I'm going to spend £150 million, then the business side of things comes in and go, well, why do you want to spend £150 million? We're quite happy finishing top 4. You know, that'll do us. We keep getting this regular amount of money.
I agree, Danny. That's exactly what Arsenal need the answer. And I couldn't agree with you more. Arsenal need to decide, look, all you fans that are paying for the most expensive ticket in the country, we don't match your ambition. You may be coming here getting upset at Arsenal losing away to Watford and want Wenger sacked and expect us to win the league. We're not interested in that. But I just wonder what they're saying to Alexis Sanchez. I wonder what they're saying to Mesut Ozil when they're trying to sign these players. Come here, boys. We'll finish 4th.
No, they're not. I don't believe they are saying that. I believe that when these players sign for the football club, they're under the impression that Arsenal are going to go and win the title, or going to go and try and win the title. Now, you look at the players that have left there. Why did Van Persie leave there?
Yeah, they're never wrong, Danny. They have to leave. So Sanchez finds himself in exactly the same situation.
Yeah.
So
but Van Persie leaves, getting frustrated, wants to win the title, goes to Manchester United, wins the title.
Yeah.
Fabregas, okay, you know, it took a little bit of time, but he ended up going eventually, come back from Spain, went to Chelsea, won the Premier League. Toure went to Manchester City. I'm sure that he won the Premier League with them. Ashley Cole went to Chelsea, won the Premier League. Sol Campbell.
Yeah.
Wait, he came
So
to
he went
Arsenal.
from Spurs to Arsenal.
Yeah, he went from Spurs to Arsenal in the Premier League. But that's the problem. Now, the one thing that Arsenal can't afford to do is if they lose an Ozil, and we've talked about it before, if they lose an Ozil or they lose a Sanchez, lose them to a Real Madrid, lose them to a Barcelona, lose them to a Bayern Munich. Don't lose them to a Manchester City. Don't lose them to a Manchester United, a Liverpool, a Chelsea. Don't do that, because that's what they've done too often. Now, by them doing that, that's a big enough statement that says we don't mind making ourselves weaker to make our domestic rivals greater. I think, now, take from this what you want. I think Arsenal, in the years gone by, would have had a bigger problem selling a player to a... Right. Let's have a look over the last 7 or 8 years. The usual top 4 has been Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, and Arsenal. Okay? So let's just take them 4. I know the last couple of years have been a little bit frantic, but let's just take them 4, right? I believe, and this is how bizarre, it may sound bizarre, but this is my honest belief. I think that Arsenal have less of an issue over the years of selling players to them top 4 teams than to, say, a Liverpool or a Tottenham at the time, because they don't want to make their domestic rivals not to win the Premier League, but their domestic rivals to get into the top 4 stronger.
So you're essentially saying Arsenal are looking at those teams that can compete for the top 4 as their rivals rather than teams that are going to win the league?
Well, if you look at
That's
it,
a big statement, Danny.
It's a big, and listen, there's no, it might not be the truth, but in my opinion, I think Arsenal more often than not in recent years happy to finish in the top 4, because up until probably a couple of years ago, your top 4 has been nailed on before the season starts, but we don't know in what order. I think that they've been comfortable in saying they've sold players to Chelsea, they've sold players to Manchester United, they've sold players to Manchester City. So there's your top 4. Now, all of a sudden,
yeah, go ahead.
all of a sudden, Liverpool's starting to come onto the horizon. Tottenham starts to come onto the horizon. If Everton starts to come onto the horizon, they're less likely to sell any players to them than they would be than the ones that are guaranteed for the top four. Because there can't be an argument to say that Arsenal aren't happy to finish in the top four, because they are a team that are a club that are financially very stable. And I would imagine that if they wanted to go out and spend 65, 70 million pounds on a Benzema, like there was all that talk of, they could probably go and do it. I don't see the reason why they couldn't do it, because they've done things the right way financially, right? So therefore they can go out and spend the money.
Okay, but how does it make sense for a football club who prides themselves on being such a brilliant business allow their best players to get down to 18 months where they lose complete control of the contractual negotiations with Sanchez? Biggest asset. Look, do it just before 2 years. And if you decide that, look, he's asking 250 grand a week, we're not going to pay him 250 grand a week. Sell him last summer, where you can still get peak value because you've got 2 years left. Because there's only one way this is heading. It's an A or B. So either you pay him what he wants or he leaves. But now, if he leaves, Danny, he leaves in the summer with the year left on his contract. Arsenal have just knocked £20 million off his valuation.
But the problem then comes is that, so we're talking about Sanchez, we're talking about Ozil. Realistically, they will probably make a profit from selling them, I would say. Even with a year left on the contract, they won't be far from making a profit of them, okay? So you're Alexis Sanchez, right? You say to Arsenal Football Club, I want £250,000, okay? Say I'm Ozil, or I'm one of the other top players of the football club. You get 250 grand. I can guarantee Arsenal are going to get a phone call from my agent saying, listen, Sanchez just signed for 250 grand. I want 230 grand.
Okay.
That's where the problem then comes. So if they break that mold, you can't break that mold for one player.
But Danny,
because everybody else is then going to come knocking on the door.
This is the market, and never more than any other time is Arsenal's top four place in jeopardy for me.
Yeah. And I don't think they'll finish in the top four.
Yeah. So never more has it been more important than now to meet the market value and say, we have to keep these players, because you look at Pochettino, Mourinho, Klopp, Conte, top managers, right? That someone has to miss out, even not including Arsenal. So for me, if I look at that top four, if Arsenal lose Alexis Sanchez for me and finish outside the top four, then I think that's a watershed moment. And I think Arsenal are in danger of being left behind by Tottenham, being left behind by United will go out and strengthen this summer. Chelsea will go out and strengthen this summer. So will Liverpool. I see Arsenal potentially getting weaker this summer. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. I want to ask you about Michael Keane.
Yes.
When we get on to Leicester. Before we get on to Leicester. Michael Keane is a young player. His career trail you're familiar with. Leaving Manchester United as a young player, going to Leicester, going to Burnley. When I watched them in America, you were on this tour, Danny. He wasn't, to me, he didn't look like a top class centre half, or didn't look like they have the potential to be a top class centre half. He looked like he was short. We did a show a week or two ago about how important it was for young players to leave the football club at the right time, top club, and move on. At a time when United were crying out for centre halves, how did Louis van Gaal miss Michael Keane's talent? Or is it something that, to you, would never have happened if Michael Keane didn't get a permanent move away to Burnley? This couldn't have happened on loan. How did Michael Keane go from leaving Manchester United to being a £30 million rated defender in essentially a year and a half?
Playing first team football with a manager that brought out the best in him, that was going to play him week in, week out, playing with experienced players around him. Because like you say, remember, he wasn't playing for Manchester United's first team that much. And he left at the right time. There was other players at the time that were probably, you would say, were ahead of them, that are probably, their career hasn't taken off like his. You had Blackett. He was playing ahead of him. I think you had Tom Thorpe. McNair, obviously, is at Sunderland now. But there's no comparison between them three and Michael Keane. He left at the right time. We've spoken about it before. For youngsters, it's all about timing. Sometimes you have to take that one step back. Ryan Shawcross is another prime example. Manchester United went to Stoke City. He's had a fantastic career. There was probably opportunities where there was a lot of other clubs sniffing around him, but nothing materialised. So when you leave first team football, I don't care what anybody says, first team football to a certain extent is going to make you far better than any under 23 training and the under 21 games. Even if you've got the best coaches around, you cannot beat first team football because you have to grow up quickly. All of a sudden you are playing with players that mortgages rely on the win bonuses come the end of the month. The jobs are relied on is in terms of people behind the scenes, and it means something. You know, you can go and play under 21 football, you can go and play under 23 football. It's not the same. It doesn't mean the same. You know, win, lose or draw, people are going to say, okay, well, you know, it's how you progress. I've had a conversation with a few coaches in the past, and I've asked them the question. I've said to them, when does football become all about winning? Now, my argument is that it should be the day you go full time, which is 16. Okay. And here's my argument why is that if you're a 16-year-old, you're progressing, you get 17, 18, all of a sudden, you've been told all the time at the end of a game, okay, we played well. You played well as an individual. We didn't win the game. Don't worry about it. All of a sudden, you're called up to the first team. You play in the first team. You get beat 1-0, 2-0, whatever it might be. You've had a fantastic performance. Everyone's in the dressing room. There's arguing and there's things like that. The manager comes in and he's getting angry. He's getting agitated. And you're thinking, you're sat in the corner going, no, it's okay. You know, I played well. So that's all that matters. That's where it's completely wrong. So for me, Keane has gone through a situation where I know Manchester United is all about winning, but even still, at the younger age, no matter how much you try and make it about winning, when you're playing in front of 100 people, when you're playing against other players where there's no threat of relegation, really, there's no threat of promotion or anything like that, people's jobs aren't at stake, it's not a major issue. The minute you step foot outside that, and the game becomes all about winning. You have to win games because people's jobs rely on it, points rely on it. You want to get promoted. You want to stave off relegation. That's when it becomes important. And that in itself can turn a boy into a man. And that's where I believe that youth football can be wrong to a certain extent. It should be all about winning from the minute you leave school because your aim is to go and play in the first team. And if you're good enough, 17, 18, you go and play in the first team, the manager ain't going to turn around to you and go, hey, listen, mate, you played really well today. We got beat 4-0, but don't worry about it. Your performance was brilliant. They're going to go, whoa, hang on a second. What did you contribute? Keane has grown up very quickly in a situation where it's sink or swim, fight or flight. And he has taken it with both hands and looks a top-class centre-half now.
Young English centre-half adds some nods to his value.
Yeah.
Would you spend is he what he's hyped up to be? Would you spend 30-35 million on Michael Keane this summer? Where do you think he'll go?
I think 30-35 million would be a lot of money to spend on him just because it's one season in the Premier League. It's one season in the Premier League, and everybody always talks about the second season is going to be the toughest one, whether you're a centre forward in terms of teams finding you out, seeing you as a danger man, or if it's a centre half where opposition will go you and say, oh, okay, this is his strengths, but this is where he's weak. So for me, no, not at the moment. I wouldn't be looking at 30-35 million pound. I would be saying, okay, Burnley had a fantastic season. They're not the surprise package next season.
So leave him at Burnley for another year.
Leave him. Listen. 15 million, okay, maybe at the moment. If he has another good season next year, then yes, you are talking about your 30s. You are talking about your 30 million plus. But for me, for one season to go and do that, I think it's a huge one because you only have to look at some Premier League players that have played for a year and then moved on to football clubs, and it's not worked out for them. And they have been that one season where they were an unknown entity. All of a sudden, the second season comes along, and it's. You only have to look at the next team we're going to talk about in a minute, Leicester City. They've got a lot of them players at the moment. They were an unknown entity last season. Okay, they had their first season, but it was a struggling first season. Last season, nobody took them seriously, and look what they did.
But Danny, he's first of all, he's a centre half. There's not many good centre halves about.
I agree.
Would you put him in the England team?
I put him in the squad at the moment.
I hope they don't, because he's got Irish grandparents. So I hope we nick him.
Hey, well, Roy Keane was at the game today, and obviously he was keeping his eye on the Irish players. But you know, I'm sure with that one, that would be a possibility. They would try to, but
he played in Ireland's under 16, 17, 18, and then he changed his allegiances. To me, a young centre half like that, why not call him up, Danny? Especially when you look at England's World Cup qualification, they're not going to get tested. So
no,
Southgate should be looking at young players like him and looking for I know you have to plan for the immediate as an England manager, but Gareth Southgate has to be looking at the World Cup 2 years from now, saying, I need to get a couple of youngsters in, and if Michael Keane continues that progression into what looks very possible, he could be the cornerstone of that defence 2 years from now.
He could. Now, to go back on what you've said about would somebody spend £30 million on him? I'm not saying the team wouldn't spend £30 million on him, because the question I would say to you, and it's really interesting, I had a conversation with someone the other day and we were talking about it. If you look at the top 6 teams, would you say that every top 6 team has a centre-back partnership that they're happy with? Or would every top 6 team go, we need another top-class centre-half? Manchester United, are you happy with that? And
I'd say that, yeah, I know. First of all,
Liverpool?
No. Liverpool have the biggest need for
Arsenal?
me out of all of them. No.
Arsenal, Tottenham, yes, you
maybe Tottenham.
Manchester City, Manchester City, definitely not.
I would agree with that.
Which is really bizarre. You wouldn't think that. Or near enough all of the top 6 teams are probably short of one top-class centre-half. So therefore, that makes the likelihood that there may be a bid coming for Keane in the summer. But from my point of view, from the outside looking in an ideal world, he has another year at Burnley before he moves.
Yeah, but I think, Danny, given what you just said, and the shortage of quality centre-halves that are about, he's in a great position, that lad. But
of course.
But as important as it is to leave United at the right time, you have to be careful not to leave Burnley too soon, because if you leave Burnley too soon, we see what happened with John Stones. Only takes a couple of really poor games early on for that pressure to be unbelievable on him, and then it's a waste of money. You can go backwards.
Well, we talk about football and timing. The list goes on and on and on, as in terms of youngsters moving to bigger clubs maybe a year too early. You know, you go all the way back. We're talking about different positions. Francis Jeffers leaving Everton for Arsenal. We talk
Fox
about Rodwell. We talk about Rodwell. We talk about Delph. We talk about Sinclair. Yeah. There's a lot of players that have made that move when, in all reality, if they'd have stayed one more year at the team that they were at, the chances are they were probably going to improve even more. So that's where you have to have someone in your corner that's going to help you out and say, listen, you know what, let's not go and take the money now. Stay here for another year. The moves are still going to be there, but you're going to be a year more experienced, because the list is endless with players that have left clubs too soon.
Yeah,
the lesser clubs too soon, gone to the bigger clubs and just been swallowed up. So it's all about timing as we talk about leaving a big club and going to a lesser club.
All right. Let's move on to talk about Leicester, Danny, because Leicester are in serious trouble. Another awful result today, awful performance. First of all, I want to ask you about Jamie Vardy. Is Jamie Vardy a top-class striker?
I think that last season proved that he is a top-class centre-forward, but you don't become a bad player overnight. I think the way that...
But isn't it second season syndrome for him, Danny? Because...
You could say that, but I would also say that there has to be, as we've actually spoken about it before. We've talked about the top teams in the Premier League. The reason that Arsenal always falls short is because of the lack of flexibility within their team, the lack of flexibility from the manager. The manager at Leicester is still playing the same system, and Leicester are actually getting Leicestered. So you look at them today. Last season, from 38 games, they probably had 33, 34 where they had less possession. This season's been very different. Today they played Swansea away, got beat 2-0, had 51% possession. Everybody knows what Leicester want to do. goals this season that Leicester have conceded where they've been done over the top. So teams are saying to Leicester, what you did to us last season, we are now going to do to you. We're going to allow you onto us. How many goals have you seen Leicester concede balls over the top? So you had Mkhitaryan is a prime example, Manchester United just last week. But what they do, teams are going, right, okay, we're gonna make your strength your weakness. Your strength is your pace to get in behind. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna sit deep. That means that pace then becomes redundant. It's a waste of time having that pace. We're gonna allow you on top of us because we know that your back four isn't blessed with great pace. And that space is then in behind for them to get into. And the amount of goals that we've seen Leicester concede this season from balls over the top has been unbelievable. I'd probably say 80% of them. How many times have you seen Jamie Vardy get in behind an opposition back four this season?
Yeah.
You don't see it. So Ranieri has to come up with something that says, right, okay, what we need to do, this isn't working now. This system has been found out, or this way of playing has been found out. What can we do that can, A, bring out the best in Vardy, bring out the best in Mahrez, who's going to create the opportunities for him, all Brighton as well? Because the key to this system that they've been playing was down to one man, and that was down to Kante. We talked about it before we came on air, and you said, surely one play can't have that much of an impact. He did. Defensively and attacking wise. Defensively, he gave that massive impact because what he meant was that Leicester played near enough a 4-1-4-1, so to speak. And there was that field and the defence was taken up by Kante. So that meant that the back four could sit deep. It meant that if a number 10 dropped off into that area, Kante would pick him up. Now, because nobody's dropping off from the midfield to pick up that number 10, the back four's playing higher. Lo and behold, they're getting done in behind. Now, because they were able to sit deep last season, because they had Kante in the team, it meant that allowed teams to come onto them. So the flip side to that was that there was then space in behind for likes of Brian, Okazaki, Vardy in particular, and Mahrez to exploit. But that's not there anymore now.
Donny, they're the only team in all of top flight football not to have scored a goal in 2017. I know Kante was a monster for them. But so was Mahrez, who clearly head isn't in it, right? Wants to go. Should have sold him. When you look throughout that team, Donny Drinkwater hasn't been the same. Obviously, Donny Drinkwater depended heavily on the ball over top of Vardy. Vardy isn't getting any chances. This team isn't creating anything. Ranieri, for me, been very loyal to his players. Hasn't. I would come out and lay in that, Donny. I know you're going to disagree with me because you're a player, right? But fans get frustrated whenever managers continuously protect players when they can see with their own eyes that they're not getting 100% from them, or for whatever reason, or it appears they're not getting 100% from them. What type of impact does it have on players when a manager comes out and lays into his players to the media? Does it galvanize a response, or does it galvanize distrust?
I don't think in this position that it would be helpful at all. I think the biggest problem that Leicester have is that, and it's something I've said before, everyone says, well, Mahrez needs to come out of the team, Vardy needs to come out of the team, there's question marks over Drinkwater, this, that, these star players. Name me one player that Ranieri signed in the summer that's been a hit.
Slimani let him down big time today. None of them. I can't think of anybody.
So therefore, Ranieri, he sits in his coaching office, has his meeting with his coaches, and says, right, Vardy isn't performing, Mahrez isn't performing, X, Y, and Z aren't performing. Let's replace them. Who are you going to replace them with?
Yeah, too late now.
But there's not the place to replace them with, because I guarantee if there was, Ranieri probably would have made that decision. So you have to look at what they didn't do in the summer, the players that they didn't bring in the summer. And Kasper Schmeichel, I was listening to an interview with him early on, which was brilliant, very frank, very open, honest. And he talked about the fact that Kante had gone, but he also spoke about Steve Walsh as well, that had left. I think he's actually gone to Everton. He was a big factor in bringing these players in, bringing in the likes of Morris, bringing in the likes of Kante. The players that have been brought in this summer, they're not better than your Morrises. They're not better than your Vardys. They're not there. They can't challenge them players. So therefore, if you take Mahrez and Vardy out and plays like that certain individuals are saying aren't performing, who are you going to replace them with? So that's the problem, and it's the same with Arsene Wenger. Everyone talks, oh, okay, Arsene Wenger needs to go, time to go. Okay, it's time to go. Who are you going to replace him with?
Oh, but Simeone's perfect for them, right?
Yeah,
because
Simeone from the outside looking in.
Yeah, but Danny, look, what he would bring to Arsenal. First of all, Arsenal we know are soft. You know they're soft. You know if you play against Arsenal, you make the game ugly, Arsenal go into their shell. Take a look at that goal that Chelsea scored against them last week. Both of them, right? Hector Bellerin doesn't want the ball bad enough. Hazard brushes off their midfielders, their defenders, walks right through them. You know against Arsenal, Simeone would change that right away, and he would change the acceptance that top four is good enough. He's also shown at Atletico Madrid, whether I have the money to compete with Barcelona or Real Madrid or not, we will compete. Because my players are an embodiment of me on the pitch, and every one of them give their lives on the pitch for Simeone. That would be, for me, one of the biggest differences you'd get, and he would clean house in that Arsenal dressing room.
Do you think the Arsenal board want that type of manager?
If they don't, Danny, there's a serious problem with that football club. What do they want? They want Eddie Howe. They want somebody that's going to come and play a couple of nice passes, and we'll just finish top four. Because if I'm on the Arsenal board and I'm looking at, all right, so we bring a guy in who's going to compete with less money than his rivals, but is going to bring a winning mentality to this football club and make us competitive. Why wouldn't you want that?
Because I honestly don't believe. Listen, I think Simeone would be an outstanding fit. I love him. I think he's brilliant. He's the best out of his players. I love the passion that he shows. I love everything about it. But him and Arsene Wenger are chalk and cheese. They couldn't be more separate.
I know, but the game's changed now, Danny.
It has changed, but I don't think Arsenal would want a different character than Arsene Wenger. I don't think they would want a manager that's going to question them.
Madness.
That's the problem.
Madness to me.
I know.
Madness to me.
I would be very, very surprised if Simeone went there. I think it'd be an outstanding fit. But you know what? He's outspoken. And I don't think Arsenal want that type of thing.
Let me talk about an area we definitely don't agree on. Mm-hmm. This week, once again, the Premier League, massive decisions that they got wrong. The West Ham decision, I don't know if you saw it, but
I haven't seen that one yet. All
right, so what happens is Feghouli, ball gets crossed in, Ben Foster comes out and punches it, and I think it's Olsen that I can't remember who it was. West Brom defender gets clattered. It's clattered by Ben Foster. Referee says play on. Ball gets knocked in. The linesman doesn't see him on the ground. Feghouli taps the ball on the net. Miles onside.
Where's Ben Foster?
Ben Foster is standing almost right next to the player, right?
In front of him or behind him?
Beside him. But there's two players, Danny. Ben Foster's there. If Ben Foster's in front of him, there's obviously only one player. But Feghouli has two players behind him. Has Ben Foster and the West Brom defender on the ground. We're clearly onside. And if you listen to the commentary as well, they're totally bemused as to why it wasn't given. Slaven Bilic's assistant gets sent off because he walks down the pitch to show him there's a guy lying on the ground, right? He's onside a mile, and he was onside. They stood there and debated this decision for over a minute, right? Because the referee goes up and he talks to the linesman, then they have this discussion, and the assistant gets sent off. By the time they had finished talking, I had seen that replay 5 or 6 times. If they had looked at that replay, they get the right decision and West Ham get an equaliser, right? In the Arsenal game, Alexis Sanchez handles the ball in the net. Mark Clattenburg says at halftime, apologises to the whole city, says, I'm sorry, wrong decision. Again, 20, 30-second decision, right? This happens every week in the Premier League. Major decisions they get wrong that can be decided in a second, and they're not always conclusive. There's going to be times whenever it's not conclusive, when video evidence doesn't clear it up. But when we have decisions like this, Hull City lose that game 2-0. That first goal is a massive goal. Mm-hmm. These are, and West Ham, that's an equaliser. These are big goals. Surely there has to be some level of we need to get these decisions right. People say don't bring in goal line technology. It's been almost invisible, Donny, and it's been perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the first, you know where I stand. You text me last night, and I text back to you in capitals, no video technology. What you need to do, in my opinion, you need to simplify rules. The problem that we have, if you remember, happened a few months ago now, it was Arsenal. Arsenal were playing someone at home, and they won the game in the last minute. And it was a similar situation. The player was lay injured down in the box, and they played on. I
can't remember who it was.
Should have simplify the rules, right? So we talk about the handball. Sanchez, for me, yes, handball. It should have been disallowed completely. You simplify the rules. Too many rules are open to interpretation. We hear this deliberate handball. I don't ever remember playing with anybody that actually deliberately handled the ball. I remember one instance with Suarez in the World
Cup. You missed Wabi Khazri, yeah. You missed. Did you see Wabi Khazri's for Sunderland yesterday?
No.
Oh, it's one. Wabi Khazri.
Yes.
Yeah. So
but in the defensive side of things,
okay,
when we're looking to give penalties, so for me, what you do, you take away, is it a deliberate handball? Is it this? Is that? You simplify the rules. Too many rules have grey areas. So for me, and we have spoken about it before, and the way you simplify it, handball is if the only part of your body that the ball is going to hit on the way to going where it's supposed to be is your arm, then it's handball. So any situation, if you said to me, Danny, right, what about this one? What about this one? If you said to me, if you put your arms in a certain situation, I can tell you straight away, bang on, whether it's handball. So Sanchez yesterday, it's handball, because if the ball doesn't hit his hand, it's going where it's supposed to go. So if I'm a defender and I put my hands up like that, or I put them across like that, it's handball. If I'm like that or I'm like that, it's not handball, because my arm or my hand is not the only thing stopping the ball going where it's supposed to go.
Sure.
Straight away, then you take it all. Is it deliberate handball? Is it intentional meant to do it? Is it a natural body movement? Come on. A referee's got to think about all these things in a split second. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but he didn't see the ball hit his hand at all. That's the problem.
But he has to see that. Somebody has to see that. The linesman who's right across from him, what does he think it's hit then? Because his arm is away from his body. If his arm is next to his chest, then okay, you give that a little bit. But if his arm's away from his body, so you can see that. You can see that one. The one Gabbiadini, the goal against Sunderland, that's a goal. That's not handball, because his arm is by his side. It hits his arm. But if it doesn't hit his arm, you know what? It hits another part of his body and still goes into the back of the net. So the problem is, for me, and this is where we're seeing a lack of consistency from the referees, is because, listen, I'm the first one to give stick to referees at times, because sometimes they can be arrogant and they really frustrate me. But I think at times you've got to see things from their point of view and say, right, okay, in a split second, not only have they got to decide whether it's handball, they've got to decide, is it intentional? What's his body shape and everything? Just simplify it.
But
same with offside. Simplify that.
Is the game too fast now, Danny? When you look back in the 70s and 80s, athletically, players weren't on the level they're on now. This is a fast.
Well, okay, but to flip that over, have the referees not moved on now as well?
A bit.
But Danny, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, but up until recently, I've still seen referees with pot bellies running up and down the pitch. You're seeing younger referees. You're seeing the likes of Michael Oliver, good shape. But to me, there's no way those referees are in the condition of a professional footballer. No way.
But they don't need to be.
But Danny, but that's just the physical side of it. This game is happening so fast now, right? It's very, very difficult as a human being. You've got bodies in the way. This game is happening. You've got to make split-second decisions to get it right all the time. And we're seeing major decisions every week going against teams that we have to live with a cliche that it evens itself out. It doesn't even itself out. But I mean, I watched the United game this weekend. Ibrahimovic was called offside 3 or 4 times. At least 3 of those, he was clearly on straight through, on goal.
Then that's poor officiating then. Now,
but it's close. But he was onside on all of them. But see, this is what I'm saying. Is the game too fast where we're expecting human beings to be able to do this without the help of technology?
Listen, call me old-fashioned. I don't want to go down that road. I really don't want to go down that road. I think that, for example, Ed, there was a great one the other week. So I did the Stoke versus Everton game. Stoke took the lead 1-0. Everton then equalised. The linesman disallowed it. And said, no, Lukaku is offside. The Everton players went straight up to the linesman and said, whoa, hang on a second. It's hit Shawcross on the way through, so therefore he's not in offside position. It doesn't matter whether he's offside or not. The referee went up to the linesman and said to the linesman what's happened. That was in the space of 10 seconds. Goal was given. No video technology, just common sense between the two people. There'll be somebody in their ear telling them as well. How many times? I've seen it quite a few times where you've seen the referee overrule a linesman, or a referee go over to the linesman when he's made a decision, and the linesman go, listen, you got that one wrong. So you're working together as a team. I think it's a lot easier to do. So that one with Sanchez yesterday, okay? As the rules are, yeah? Is that classed as handball?
It's a good question, because...
So therefore, if there was video evidence yesterday, would that have actually ruled the goal out, or would they have said there was no intent, it wasn't deliberate, so therefore the goal stands?
What the PGMOL said is that it's, strictly speaking, it's not in the rules, but you can't score a goal with your hand, right? So the referees, Clattenburg saw it, apologized to Hull at halftime, said that if he'd have seen it, he wouldn't have given it. But the thing is, Danny, you're getting into, like you said, grey areas when it comes to intent, okay? Because it's very difficult to decipher. But if someone, like you said, someone's got their hand in an unnatural area, which to me, Alexis Sanchez's hand, purposely deflected that ball into the net. If that ball doesn't hit his hand, it doesn't go in. That you can't count that. That's clear, okay, right? But let me finish. One of the reasons why technology to me is important, when we look at 2002 World Cup, Danny, in South Korea, there's an investigation into that where the referee and multiple referees, because I've spoken to some of these match fixers, then it goes to the very top. Once you introduce video evidence, it makes it much harder for a referee to make decisions based on the crowd, to make decisions based on maybe, for example, Central America, the CONCACAF qualification is rife with corruption, right? To me, it makes it harder to influence the outcome of football when you've got more than one arbiter who's making these decisions and saying, look, you can't be given, these decisions are clear cut. It's not going to eliminate it completely, because a referee can still give a dodgy penalty whether you've got video replay or not, but it just makes it harder for me.
So if we had, so you say you want video evidence, right? If we have video evidence, okay, who is it that makes that decision? Is it a fourth official? Is it a referee that would usually referee a Premier League game, but therefore this week he isn't doing it, so he's taking charge of the video? Who is making the decision on the video evidence?
Well, I still think ultimately it comes down to the referee, but whenever the referee is refereeing the game. But I think if a referee, if say Slaven Bilic asks for the play to be reviewed, right? He gets one call, at the weekend against West Ham. It's very difficult for a referee when it's clear on evidence, video evidence, which is a guideline, or clearly it's an onside goal. Very difficult for a referee to compound a decision and say, yes, I see that, but I'm still not going to give it. You can say that in real time.
But because of the rules, and because of the rules being open to interpretation, I know for a fact that in the next month there's going to be a similar situation as Alexis Sanchez, and a handball is going to be given. There'll be another one where the handball is not given. So unless you change the rules, unless you simplify the rules, it's a waste of time having video technology anyway. Because what happens if the fourth official who's on the side, he's got that video evidence in front and goes, listen, referee, we've had a look at it, and for me it's a definite handball. The referee goes then, well, I don't think it is handball. I don't think it's handball. You're seeing it differently than me because the rules are open to interpretation. So therefore, I'm not going to give it. So who makes that decision? Is it still the referee that makes the decision?
Yes, of course. But it is still always the referee that makes the decision.
It's a can of worms.
I don't know, Dan. I think It's not going to be 100%. You're never going to fix it 100%. But to me, video evidence would have ruled Alexis Sanchez's goal out. It would have counted West Ham's equaliser. Gabbiadini's goal, I don't know if it had counted or not. But I think that we see this so often where this game moves so fast. I sympathise with referees, and major decisions they're getting major decisions wrong in the Premier League every week. I mean, we saw a situation where Arsenal played Chelsea. I think it was last season. Andrew Marner sends off the wrong player. It's madness. And so
but that's the referee. The referee has to be held responsible for that.
Yeah, no, I know. But if you're sitting there, you're Wenger, take a look at the video. You're sending off the wrong guy. But still, you're not going to fix it 100%. But to me, it would be an improvement on the game, and I think ultimately it helps the bigger teams because
If we go back to you're talking about a manager has one call during a game or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's going to use that. He's going to use that not necessarily to the benefit of getting a decision right. He's going to use that to the benefit of slowing the game down. What happens if it's 1-0? 1-0 the last 5 or 10 minutes, and there's a decision which isn't dodgy at all, and he wants to slow the game down. Whoa! Stop the game! I need to do this. Then that you're then bringing the tactical side into it, and I just think it opens up a can of worms then for everybody.
Danny,
no,
they do it right now with substitutions. Right? I watched United Hull last week, and Hull were wasting time the last half an hour.
Yeah, but they can't do it until it goes out of play.
Yeah, but that's the same with the call. You have to wait till the play stops to contest a call. And it's a very risky thing to be wasting it, just to waste a couple of seconds. Could it be abused? Yes. The other rule that I would change right away, change it immediately, is if you have 3 substitutions and one of your players gets injured, from say someone tackles your player.
Yes.
Red card. He gets sent off. Your player's getting carried off injured. How on earth can you also be punished too? Surely for that situation, you should be allowed to bring on another player. It's another one we get into. But anyway, we'll agree to disagree on it. I mean, to me, I would do it, Dan. We'll go ahead and before we go, would you change your bottom 3? Who's your bottom 3? Swansea look like they're in good shape.
Who? Did you write it down? My bottom 3.
I did, but I don't have it in front of me.
Right. So the bottom 3 at the moment is Sunderland, Crystal Palace, and Hull.
Yes, I think Leicester are a point above Hull.
I said on Friday, when I was doing Sky, I said that if Leicester lost today, they would go down. So I think Leicester will go down. I think of the bottom 3 that are most likely to get out of it, I think that Hull will get out of it. And let me see. I think there's going to be a team that gets dragged into it. Not too sure who it is yet, because I think Crystal Palace will get out of it. I think Sunderland. I wasn't going to. I've said that I fancied Sunderland to get out of it. So no, I'm going to say Sunderland are going to get out of it. I'm going to say Palace, Leicester, and someone's going to get dragged into it, but I don't know who yet.
Middlesbrough, maybe.
If Bournemouth get a good beating tomorrow, they could get dragged right into it.
By the way, on the Sunderland issue, one of the most heartwarming pictures I've seen in a long time was Jermaine Defoe.
Oh, gotcha.
My goodness, that was, footballers get slaughtered sometimes, but that was just, I have to be honest, that choked me up.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had many conversations about this before, that footballers get a bad name at times. And you know what? When there's a little bit of good that they do, or no, not a little bit, clubs do so much good for charities, for people that need help and things like that, gets that much space, gets that much talked about. And it's not good because the impact that a Jermaine Defoe has on a Bradley Lowry like that is unbelievable. We used to have it, like when we was at Southampton, we had a hospital, and there was a lad, and he was on trial at Southampton Football Club at the time from the Isle of Wight. and he collapsed while he was playing for Southampton in a game. He was in hospital for a long time, and we all went to see him. And I got quite friendly with his father, and I said to him, I said, listen, I said, if you don't mind, I'll come and see him every day, after training. So I'd come and see him and things like that. And he rang me up one day. I'll never forget it. He rang me up one day and he said, Dan, he said, listen, my son's taking a little bit of a turn for the worse. And I said, right, okay. He said, I won't come today. And he was on tears on the phone to me. And he went, no, I want you to come. I want you to come. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah. So I went there and he was like limp, lay on the bed and things like that.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding you. By the time I left that hospital bed, he was playing his guitar. And you don't realize the effect you have on people. You are so fortunate to be in a position where you can inspire young people in particular. And for me, a lot of footballers, I know plenty of footballers that do stuff for the Donna Louise Hospice near me in Stoke. Rory Delap has a big thing for them. Tony Pulis does stuff for them. The hospices all over the place, the charities, the big organizations, the hospitals. And it goes unnoticed because it's not, unfortunately, it's not headline news. But believe me, from a person that's been in that position where you can have this effect on a youngster, you get as much satisfaction out of it as the parent does that sees you having that one-on-one. Whereas I've also had other situations where I got close to. There was 2 other girls that I got close to at hospital, would make the hospital visits just off my own back and things like that, because I didn't want anybody to think I was doing it as publicity and things like that. So, and one of them made a full recovery, and the other one passed away. It was awful, but we did a charity match for her and things like that, and you try and do what you can, and it's a real humbling experience to see the effect that not only football but you as an individual can have on somebody, especially if they follow your football club, and the influence that you can have on them. And for me, people say, oh, it's great that they come in. They're my heroes because you see what they're going through at such a young age. So true. And Jermaine Defoe, he epitomizes the good side of football that unfortunately is not spoken about enough. Is not mentioned enough.
I'm a father, Donny. I have a couple of boys. And I can't imagine being in a situation where I'd have to deal with my child with neuroblastoma, like this young kid has. And it's impossible to put into words what footballers mean to young kids and how much they look up to them. They're superheroes, and to have a superhero come and just not look for anything in return. Just spend time, just watch TV with a kid. You don't even have to do anything.
Exactly.
Just be there, just be present. And you could see that wee lad was just, Bradley Lara was hanging on to Jermaine Defoe.
Oh God, like, fell asleep on him.
I was like, he was safe. Amazing picture. It spoke volumes, and Jermaine Defoe deserves huge credit for it. And you're quite right. I've spoken to footballers, Danny, I've interviewed them and I've asked if I can speak about their charity work, and I've said, I'd rather you didn't, because I really don't want.
Because they're not doing it.
Yeah, because they're not doing it for publicity. Yeah, and some of them do amazing amount of work, and they prefer it wasn't publicized. So, and it doesn't fit the narrative of people that want to build footballers up as being selfish, self-centered. They're not all like that. In any walk of life, you have people that are selfish, but you also have people that are acutely aware of how important they are to their community and how important they are. You don't even have to be Bradley doesn't have to be a Sunderland fan. It could be anybody. Just to see a footballer walk in means everything. So huge credit to Jermaine Defoe.
Well, you only have to look at Everton Football Club as well. What they've done for Bradley. Brilliant. As well. At Christmas it was unbelievable. At Christmas they put a thing out. Can people send cards to him? Thousands and thousands of Christmas cards. It's unbelievable. And that's the thing is, everything that's going on in the world in the world at the moment. I know we're going slightly off top, but everything that's going on in the world. Let's take a little bit of time to appreciate that. You know what? Human nature. There's good people out there. We get focused on the bad things instead of looking at what good people there is out there in the world.
I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree with you. Absolutely. So we'll leave it on a positive note. Danny,
yes, mate.
We'll catch up with you next week. Thanks very much for everyone for downloading. Keep it subscribing. Thanks for everyone. Cheers, Danny. All the best, mate.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.